It says I'm live. I know. I'm just goofing. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Walter Bosley channel. And before I get started on trying to answer, among other questions, the question, are we being lied to about the nature of our being, our very souls? I want to remind you that the new time for this is right now. Hold on a second. These are a bit loud. Naturally, I don't have any cough until I'm here live to talk to you guys. Welcome. If I said that already, my mind has been on a couple of different projects today. So you'll excuse me if I start off a little discombobulated. So this is the new time for the live casting of this show, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sundays. As you know, Sundays, every Sunday, a live stream. For those of you who are new, this is the day of the live stream, and it's Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. Before I get started, I want to remind you of some of the books. Now, this channel isn't monetized. I like you to get these live streams and the stuff here at the Walter Bosley channel for free. But I am a publisher, and I do have to make a living. So I'm going to tell you about the books that I'm publishing.
Can I fix something really quick?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We're doing technical adjustments.
It's driving me
crazy. So bear with us. It's a little loud too.
It's red. Your face is all red.
Okay. Malia's here. Me with my Giorgio Tsoukalos hairstyle. Do you like that?
You can keep talking.
And I have my Kaleidoscope Grimoire t-shirt on. We are adjusting. Do not attempt to control your television set. We control the horizontal. We control the vertical. And for the next 90 minutes, you will be in the outer limits of the Walter Bosley channel. So, okay, great. Much better, much better. People say, why don't you do that before you start your live stream? To which I say, why don't you go piss up a rope? You know, we're very, I'll be casual if I want to be. So, as a publisher, one of the things I love doing are classic reprints. Now, what are classic reprints? Classic reprints are just that, reprints of classic books. Okay? And I'm very excited to have in my catalog Edgar Rice Burroughs. And in this volume, Tales of the Hollow Earth, I present to you Edgar Rice Burroughs' great pulp novels, At the Earth's Core and Pellucidar. Now, these are his Hollow Earth, as you can see by the title, Hollow Earth Tales. That's a little Roy Crinkle art there for you on the cover. Roy Crinkle. And of course, 20 years. Remember, last year we marked 20 years. This label in business. 20 uninterrupted years. And here you go. See? At the Earth's Core, a nice font, nice printing. If you like classic adventure, if you're a Burroughs fan, you're going to want this edition of Tales of the Hollow Earth. Okay, so that's one. And then, of course, there is Poisonous Magnetism, The Paranormal Experiences of John Brown, Medium of the Rockies. Now, Empire of the Wheel readers and fans will know exactly who this John Brown is. Also, I've talked about this here and on my radio show at independentbroadcasting.com. Friday nights, 6 p.m. PST to 9 p.m. I've talked about it there, but John Brown was one of the first white settlers of San Bernardino Valley in the mid-19th century and mid to late 19th century. And he was the senior founding member of the Brotherhood of Kindred Manifestations, the spiritualist group, and that is spiritualist with a capital S, which established what was called the first spiritualist temple of San Bernardino. Now, originally, I think they called the temple itself something else, but the first spiritualist temple established here in San Bernardino also happened to be literally the first spiritualist temple in the state of California. So John Brown is quite a luminary in that world back then. And I retitled it, Poisonous Magnetism is drawn from his own words, from this book. Poisonous magnetism is what the entities, okay, who, in my opinion, possessed, and if we're not possessing, we're oppressing John Brown from the time he was 6 years old. Poisonous magnetism is what is described in this book as to what they wanted him to do to a churchianity guy whom they hated. Okay, it's a very dark episode in the life of John Brown, and I thought, well, that makes for a good main title of the reprint. This is his own, in his own words. This is from the 1880s. Okay, this is John Brown's own words, folks. Okay, there it is, right there. And the foreword is by J.S. Loveland. J.S. Loveland was well known in the spiritualist circles of California back then. So these books are available at lulu.com. And let's see, soon Poisonous Magnetism, if not already, this edition will be available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. And then, of course, there's another one in my Talbot Mundy series. This is Winds of the World. Okay. And Talbot Mundy right there, as you can see, that guy there. And if you guys enjoyed my past discussions in the last month or so on the Talbot Mundy books, here's another one. That's the Yasmini character that I talked about, who's in the other books, Caves of Terror and The Nine Unknown. And Talbot Mundy is going to be featured in the literary tours that we're going to be offering very soon. You're going to learn details about that real soon. But this is how I don't do super chats. People refuse to. They don't like the PayPal button, because everyone's got their program of preference. But I don't push that heavily, as you know. But I am a publisher, So if you're inclined to want to, donate money, well, don't just donate money. Okay, get something out of it. Get one of these are just 3 of the books that I publish. I publish many more. Order one of the books, or if you have them all, order one for someone else who doesn't have it. That way you're getting something material. Somebody's getting something material, So there we go. Pitch over. Okay, so this week, the audio was really picking up the cough drop. Sorry about that. This week, I was preparing another topic, but I realized last night or this morning, I'm not quite ready to discuss that particular topic because there's another source I want to refer to. So I thought, let's find something else that is one of my favorite subjects. And so I pulled Joseph Farrell and Scott DeHart's Trans-Humanism book off the shelf. And I realized, okay, this is something that I find interesting. So the question I open with, are we being lied to about the nature of our souls and our very beings? And I think the answer is obviously yes. We've always been lied to about that. And the lie, here's what's, in my opinion, the most heinous thing about the lie is we're lied to by people that we are conditioned to trust implicitly. And because they are the experts, we are told. Okay. And we live in an era, in my opinion, which began in 1830 with the takeover of the Royal Society by the technocrat scientists, who despised the philosopher scientists. They finally outnumbered those philosopher scientists in the Royal Society and changed the rules, favoring the bean counting specialist, technocrat type of scientist. Okay. And as in those days in Western Europe, as the Royal Society went, that's the way professional science and its progeny academia went. Okay, the way the Royal Society went, and therefore, this was in 1830, early mid 19th century. Therefore, by the time all of us here living and breathing in this life are concerned, we were born into and have greatly grown up and lived in a world that exalts the specialist. Okay. Now, what the specialist philosophy, so to speak, does is it allows, let me rephrase that, it discourages any kind of comprehensive view of reality or observed reality. Because if one has a comprehensive view, one might be able to see through the bullshit veneer that is laid over our reality by the specialists. Now, what do I mean before I get into this book? What do I mean by, let me give you an example. The for instance, take the Great Pyramid, a popular subject here. For the longest time, we're told basically what historians or anthropologists and historians had to say about the Great Pyramid. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's a tomb. Take our word. Oh, it's Egyptian. It's Egyptian, classical Egyptian, and it's a tomb. Okay. Well, we're supposed to take their words because they were the Egyptology experts. They were the anthropology experts. But what happens is someone who's in another field, whose expertise might be engineering or physics, they take a look at the Great Pyramid and they see other things. Well, in our society, in our times, we are discouraged to listen to what the expert whose assessment may be something different or outright disagrees with what the Egyptologist or the anthropologist says. We're supposed to disregard that because, hey, the Egyptologist is the expert on Egypt, all things Egypt, right? And the anthropologist is the expert on all things, in this case, the religious assumption. Remember, when scientists and historians and what have you cannot explain an ancient structure, they just fall back on it being a religious temple. Okay? That's the fallback. Most of this audience here understands that. Now, the reason you get pushback from specialists, okay, is because when you don't bow down to the going culture of listen to the specialist, they feel threatened. Okay. If someone else comes along and has a better grasp on the picture than they do, well, it threatens their authority. Therefore, their what they have determined is their value, their stock in trade, right? So they don't want anyone getting a comprehensive picture because it takes away from their authority. All right. So of course, and another part of that is the specialist has very often spent years in school and in training and a lot of money, okay, to become that specialist that you know, they figure they've got a horse in the race, you know, as far as expenditure is concerned, and by God, they did the training. They spent the money to get the training. So therefore you need to listen to them because they're the expert. Now, don't get me wrong. Um, a neurologist, okay, a brain surgeon is going to know a hell of a lot more about neurology in the human brain, than a bathroom plumber. Okay, so I mean, I'm not. Let's not be ridiculous here. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the existence, and there's a need for specialists, but I think you get my point. Okay, um, if the secret to the Great Pyramid is an engineering or physics issue, okay, then I'm sorry, the anthropologist ain't gonna quite cut it. So yes, there is a need for properly applied specialism or specialty, but here's what we got to get away from: assuming that we cannot comprehend what the specialist does. That's what they want you to do. They want you to just put everything in their hands, particularly where history is concerned, and particularly where the origins of humankind are concerned. They don't want you thinking about that. It's just like the priesthood, small p, in religions, small r. Okay, that concept in any religion that has a priesthood. Okay, you can believe their religion because their book tells you can. Their book approved by their priesthood, and in most cases written by their priesthood. Really organized religion. I hate to say it. A lot of people don't want to hear this. Oh, Walter, it's Sunday. Ooh, how can you? What better time? It's really a lot of trust me, bro. Take my word for it, ism. Okay. Well, if you don't do this, then this bad thing will happen to you. Says who? Well, says us. And we're the experts. We're the specialists. You couldn't possibly understand. And that's just not the case. That's just, a lot of people figure out that, okay, that's just nonsense. So what do then? They set out to seek the truth. And two of my favorite truth seekers, of course, are Joseph P. Farrell and Scott D. DeHart, doctors both of Oxford pedigree. And I'm going to jump into Trans-Humanism, a grimoire of alchemical agendas, authored by the aforementioned doctors Farrell and DeHart. Oh, this is the first time I thought of this. But if you guys are acquainted with their writings, or even the men themselves, I just got a very Poe kind of vibe. There's Doctors Tar and Professor Feather. There's Doctors Farrell and DeHart. Maybe someone needs to do a series of gothic-y books featuring Joseph and Scott. Oh man, I could see that. That would be cool. That would be really cool. So I'm going to jump right in here because I think reading from their book is a good good places for me to jump in. Now, if you've not read this book, I highly recommend it. Transhumanism. Now, when people these days, within the current trendy context of the prefix trans, people think you're talking about, the current political hot potato of transgenderism. And that's not what transhumanism is the larger subset. Okay, the transgender discussion is a subset of transhumanism, particularly within the context of what we're going to speak about today. So now I'm gonna quote the epigraph that they have put here in the introduction. You are now in this degree permitted to extend your researches into the more hidden paths of nature and science. And that's from the initiation of the fellowcraft. See, Masonry encourages one to extend their researches into the more hidden paths of nature and science. Maybe that's why a lot of collectivist scaredy cats like to demonize Freemasonry. If we were to tell you that there is an alchemical agenda that transcends religions, secret societies, and spans the millennia, you would probably, and rightly, at least entertain the suspicion that we had taken momentary leave of our sanity. If we were to tell you further that this alchemical agenda spans virtually every discipline that you can think of, from biology to history, physics, topology, art, music, even as we shall see in the main text, literary criticism, you would probably entertain that idea more seriously, for that indeed is what we are going to tell you in these pages. For superintending all the alchemical images and their implied agendas that we survey here, there is one standing out above them all, that both compels the agendas and simultaneously reveals some of them as forms of false alchemy. The image is that of primordial simplicity, or androgyny, or nothingness, or physical medium, or ether, or ocean of quantum flux, or grand architect of the universe. The image goes by many names depending on the fashion of the age and the particular agenda emphasized, but it is nonetheless the same image. This means that modern man is in a predicament, for he is about to be sacrificed, either upon an apocalyptic altar of alchemical science, or, if one is to believe the three great Yahwisms, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, slaughtered by a righteous God come back to restore justice to the world by an unparalleled bloodletting prior to mankind's final transformation, if one is to believe a certain strand of Christian fundamentalist eschatology, into the very same sorts of alchemical creations as preferred by the transhumanist science they excoriate. Either way, the transhumanist gospels of science, or the revelations, prophets, and ministers of Yahwism, are saying the same thing. The new age is here. Prepare to die as part of your process of alchemical transformation. For those caught in the middle, neither worshiping the unrestrained power lust of modern science, nor the bloodthirsty God of the revealed monotheisms, this is indeed a predicament. In this book, we propose to examine the first pole of the sacrificial dialectic, the so-called scientific one, reserving our comments on the bloody eschatology of the three great Yahwisms for a future work and sequel to this, though we shall of course treat it briefly here. Nonetheless, we are concerned here with altars and an alchemical transhumanist apocalypse, for in this case the altars are not only in churches, but the altar in preparation is the earth, the sacrifice is mankind, and the alchemy is, well, alchemy. For there is nothing terribly modern about the goals and agendas being discussed and advanced in so-called modern science at all. In the introduction to our previous book, The Grid of the Gods, we wrote, "Modern science is but a technique of the imagination to bring into reality the operations of the magical intellect and the mythologies of the ancients, with consistent and predictable regularity. This implies, therefore, that the magical intellect encountered so often in ancient texts, myths, and monuments is in fact the product of a decayed science, but a science nonetheless. Much of modern physics may be viewed as but hermetic metaphysics with topological equations, and by a similar process of examination, much of modern genetics may be viewed as but the myths of Sumer, Babylon, and even the Mayans, given flesh by the techniques of genetic engineering. Though we both noticed this odd coincidence of modern science and ancient myths, each of us came to the writing of this book by very different and yet in many respects by very parallel routes. Indeed, For both of us, a heavy atmosphere of synchronicity hovers over the observations and experiences that brought us here to this book. For each of us, the process began when we were both at Oxford, though at different times, pursuing our PhDs in theology. And we each kept what we were noticing carefully to ourselves in hidden thoughts written in notebooks of observations, carefully held away from public view, or hidden even more carefully away on the tablets of our minds. There, like Percy Shelley's tormented monster creator, Victor Frankenstein, we began to notice things in the writings of medieval schoolmen, alchemists, theologians, and novelists. Quoting Frankenstein, "These thoughts supported my spirits while I pursued my undertaking with unremitting ardor. One secret which I alone possessed was the hope to which I had dedicated myself, and the moon gazed on my midnight labors, while with unrelaxed and breathless eagerness I pursued nature to her hiding places. Who shall conceive the horrors of my secret toil?" End quote. We too were after an answer regarding how the ancients understood nature, life, death, and the creation of recreation of life, and quite naturally so, for as students of theology and philosophy, our journey was to be a focus of our doctoral research, as well as lead us down paths that, until now, were shared only between the two of us in private conversations. That's delightful. I could just see these two, each at their own times in the Ashmolean Library, the dark, dim candlelight of. Wow. Okay. This is one of those things. The things they're looking at. These are the things that are potentially very dangerous, of course. These are the paths that one can go down and end in disaster. Yet, for some people, it is an irresistible path nonetheless, because it promises the greatest, purest knowledge, while also at the same time offering opportunity for the most catastrophic failure, for the threat of catastrophe. Some say even damnation, within that context. But it's irresistible. Think how many times you've walked past a bakery and you see that chocolate cake in the window. And let's say you happen to love chocolate, and this is the most chocolatey example of chocolate cake you've ever seen. I was in Strasbourg, France, back in 97 on my way home from Saudi Arabia. I went into Strasbourg for a day, and I passed a patisserie. Is that the right word? And there it was, this incredible chocolate torte there displayed in the window. So I went in. I was a younger, thinner Air Force officer back then. The metabolism, was a little bit better. And I had just survived 179 days in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I, rewarded myself that day, just as on another day, I rewarded myself with that first real beer in Rudesheim, first real beer in 6 months, and rewarded myself with a beer in Heidelberg, and you get the point. So I go in, and I couldn't resist. I had to get that torte. And of course they wrap it up, and it looked like I was walking out of there with the most dainty package from Victoria's Secret that you ever saw. Okay. And it was for a pastry, but I didn't care because, I had that chocolate torte. It was irresistible. Or anything that's irresistible to you. That's what this path I'm talking about is. Name your thing that you find irresistible. And I'm one of those who thinks that my opinion is that knowledge such as we are talking about here is far more irresistible than any earthly delight, be it chocolate, be it sex, be it riches, be it some thrilling adventure out in nature. Arcane knowledge. At 59 years old, this is what I reached by the time I was in my 40s. Arcane knowledge, far more valuable to me than any of the earthly delights. And it also offers really the greatest dangers. It can lead directly to madness, as we know. And some say damnation, eternal damnation. But how much of that is Here There Be Tigers on the map? How much of that is the specialist voice popping in, protecting his own interest? Whose interests would be threatened if you found out that there was no such place as hell, and that there was no such thing as eternal damnation in hell? Well, the various priesthoods that their stock and trade is fear, and that's what they use to keep themselves the authority. So do you see a logic in maybe, oh no, don't go down that path, it's shadowy, there's demons there, oh, it's going to lead, trust us with the knowledge of these things? And they don't, 99.9% of them don't understand jack shit more about any of it than the bathroom plumber guy. And in fact, there's plumbers out there that probably understand this more than members of the specialty corps. Okay, so allow me to read on. Alchemo-chimerical man. Alchemo-vegetable man, alchemo-sexual man. Definitions and preliminary observations is the subtext here. I'm just going to read the certain things and comment on them. Why was it we wondered, Farrell Hart, why was it we wondered that the basic ancient myths, excepting those offshoots of Yahwism, were based on the idea of mankind's descent from a primordial androgyny through the mineral, through the vegetable, and finally into the animal kingdom? These images are disconcerting, even nonsensical, but the most disconcerting thing about them, as we discovered, was that they also reappeared in the snapshots of modern science that every so often make a column filler article in a newspaper or make their way around the internet sites. Okay. They talk about in throughout the history, and that even in our times, as these hybridization of humankind, mankind, with either animals or plant or technology or whatever, as a goal to be sought, as something that we should aspire to. Why was it that the ancient images could speak of strange androgynies of fusions between the plant and human? And in modern times, why is it that genetically modified plants sprouting their own kind of alchemical seedless seeds, or plants modified with splices of human DNA, were touted once again as a goal to be sought? They've been pursuing this singularity, right? This collectivist existence. Scott and Hart or Farrell and Hart wondered, was it possible that the whole agenda of modern science was from top to bottom an alchemical agenda for the complete transformation of humankind? Was this was the emergence, the taking over, say, of the Royal Society in 1830 by these specialist scientists, the bean counting, materialists, was that part of this greater pursuit of this singular collectivist existence? Once again, there seemed to be an agenda that was nothing less than a quest for an androgynous fusion of man and machine, of man and the mineral. This brought us to a consideration of the most disconcerting image of them all, androgyny itself, which more often than not stood for a fusion of many sorts of paired principles that seemed at first unrelated in the concept of androgyny in its most basic sense. So see, all you naughty-minded people, you think that when you're in a discussion of androgyny, you're talking about today's trendy topic, okay, of transgender people. Nay, no, that's not what we're talking about here, okay? That is a subset of this, and I'm going to get to that. I'm going to be reading, chunks of this, and then we're going to get into just pure Walter Bosley commentary. That left the most disconcerting image of them all, one found in nearly every culture and religion, even the Jewish and the Christian, though it is very carefully disguised and the subject carefully avoided. That image was the image of the primordial androgyny, both of God and of man. Yes, the androgynous God, and man being androgynous in original form. Ooh, this is going to make some people nervous in their seats. Why was it, we wondered, that so many of the initiatory rites of secret societies and fraternal organizations within the Occidental tradition were overtly, yet subtly, alchemo-sexual in nature? One need think only of the allegations of skull and bones initiates at Yale stripping naked and wrestling in mud, or, as we shall see in the main text, of the androgynous implications of Masonic initiation rites. Why is it, moreover, that those societies so often restricted their memberships to men? The mystery deepened the more we looked. As Joseph delved into research and authored a whole series of books on ancient physics and history again and again, and to his consternation, he bumped into what can only be described as a primordial masculine androgyny, oftentimes associated with alchemical doctrines, that is to say, a view of the gods or of God, or even of the prime matter or soup that was deeply explicitly and simultaneously masculine, androgynous, and alchemical, both in its symbolism and in its implications. Oftentimes, this imagery would appear the most explicit precisely in those religions and cultures most strongly condemning alchemy, alchemical or esoteric societies, and alchemo-sexual rituals or ceremonies. Gee, isn't that interesting? So in the traditions that forbid and condemn, the very sources of the symbols that are run strongly through their own traditions. What's up with that? Is that ignorance or is it agenda? Don't you worry your little heads with what all this is. We're the experts. We'll tell you what it means. Basically, in my opinion, they're protecting their jobs. One need only consider the Christian Trinity as such an androgynous image, laden with multiple levels of meanings and potential misunderstandings, and how, by contrast, the Roman Church, for one, has more or less officially and almost universally condemned any esoteric alchemical practices or fraternities, especially those in which life appears to imitate the art of the mysterious image. That doesn't surprise me that the Roman Church, forbids anything but what they want you to think. At the minimum, it seemed to us that there was a disconnect between the effeminate Jesus image of Roman Catholic religious iconography and the ethic. So the effeminate Jesus image that is being referred to is one of these examples of the symbolism of what we're talking about. Remember, it's a symbol. Okay, nobody get your panties in a bunch or clutch your pearls about, that reference. Okay, it's a symbol to make a point. And the number one iconic, symbol of Roman Catholicism is Christ. So therefore, to put it in the forefront like that, it really does, I think, and we get a little bit of this in when Christ says in the temple to, the priest, you are the sons of your father, the devil, and liars. Okay, that right there is an example of, the contrast between this Christ figure, individual, and the Yahweh of the Old Testament, the bloodthirsty, vengeful, jealous God. I think, I've said before elsewhere, I think that Sir Walter Scott was telling us something in Robin Hood, for example, with Prince John. Now remember, Prince John is a bloodthirsty, jealous, wrathful prick who usurps the throne of King Richard. Okay, within the context of the story, the good king who is off fighting a war. Okay, so he's off doing what he's got to do, and he's the good king, but his asshole brother or whatever, sits on the throne and sets himself up as king. And golly, Prince John matches the description of the Yahweh of the Old Testament. And there's things Christ says in the New Testament that seems to indicate that maybe Sir Walter Scott was using literature to refer to this situation. Isn't that interesting? Let us continue. However, other religions adopting a similar imagery followed the principle of life imitating art, and thus freely approved of or instituted corresponding rituals, ceremonies, and life practices consistent with the alchemo-sexual imagery related to the gods. How then did one account for the difference, and at what point did it arise, and why? This too was a mystery. Why did some promote such masculine images, then qualify them by theological caveats stating that God was beyond or above such sexual distinctions and was in fact a kind of androgyne in their own version of masculine androgyny? Why then at the same time did some religions and cultures insist on the permanence and revelatory character of this image and therefore establish it as the final character of those masculine androgynous gods, the alchemo-sexual image themselves, and then go on to condemn those rituals, ceremonies, and corresponding practices which are implied in them? It's like an insane gaslighting hypocrisy right there in front of your face. For the enlightened mind, the mind from whom the scales of the eyes are gone, the veil is lifted. They're looking right at the very dogma, scripture, material you have it of the particular tradition, and seeing clearly what's there while being told by its priesthood, no, you're not seeing that, and how dare you see that? Over several years of discussion, we began to suspect that there was more going on here than met the eye, and began to explore the possibility that this image may have been a profound cosmological clue, perhaps even a residue of very old doctrines, a legacy coming from high antiquity, and that the image was therefore not original to the later classical and esoteric systems promoting it. We began to suspect that maybe the imagery had less to do with religion than with metaphors about the underlying physical substrate or materia prima itself, with the God behind God, as it were. Then a second mystery was added to compound the first. As our study was theology, early Christian history, doctrine, and ritual, we were familiar with a little known, one is tempted to say deeply and deliberately buried, early tradition that mankind himself was originally created as a kind of masculine, androgynous, alchemo-sexual creature that was capable of some sort of reproduction. Yes, folks, a literal androgyne, our original state within this context. And this is what they were finding, even throughout their study of however many centuries of Christian literature. As will be seen in the main body of this book, variations of this tradition held that the division of the sexes was a result of the fall of man, or accomplished in prevision for it. The implication of such a view, again, was disturbing to say the least, for implicit in that idea is the notion that any reproduction by the original so-called masculine androgynous man would, by the nature of the case, have been homosexual or asexual in nature. As we dug, we soon realized that this concept also had a far older provenance than just the Christian, or for that matter, just the Jewish traditions. It was also a traditional teaching of the deepest and oldest mystery schools, and was a principal component of very old esoteric and occult doctrines from Egypt to China to Mesoamerica. The clear impression that these gave was, once again, that the idea came from remotest antiquity. Thus the mystery deepened. When and why was this tradition obfuscated? And when and why did persecution of any manifestation of alchemo-sexuality, metaphorical or otherwise, emerge? Coupled with this problem was another, the emergence of bloody and oftentimes human sacrifice. We have eventually come to view these clues as the three most closely held secrets at the core of such fraternities, secret societies. Let me go back before where I highlighted this. As we continued to research down the long avenues of esoteric tradition and ancient Hermetic texts, we encountered yet other clues indissolubly connected at every turn to this very ancient image of the primordial masculine alchemo-sexuality. And indeed, we have eventually come to view these clues as the three most closely held secrets at the core of such fraternities, secret societies, and mystery schools, dating back into the mists of high antiquity, predating the Yahwistic monotheisms, predating, the pretty much most of the known religions, or all of them as we know them. Oh, God forbid, Walter, how dare you suggest that anything prior to our beloved doctrines have any value? The first of these secrets was, as already mentioned, that in these ancient cosmological systems, the primordial symbol both of God and of man is alchemo-sexual in nature. Not as a matter of faith or revelation, but as a matter of a kind of formally explicit knowledge about the physics of the medium itself. However, coupled always to this in the ancient view were curiously two other secrets or mysteries, namely, one, that God, or at least someone or something, depending upon the particular interpretation in view, or nothing exists. Not as a matter of faith, but as a matter of a kind of formally explicit knowledge. There's a difference between faith and formally explicit knowledge. Okay, folks? And they are making the distinction here. That third secret, that is what all this hinges on, that they were finding throughout all traditions predating what we know, even in the West, The third one is that personal immortality also exists. Not as a matter of faith, but again, as a kind of formally explicit knowledge. Wow. This is what they found, expressed and symbolized, and in there, that personal immortality exists. Not as a matter of faith, but again, as a kind of formally explicit knowledge, as if it's a given, as if it's known by some other means than just somebody standing in front of a room or a tent meeting, telling you, trust me, bro. Okay? We were not we tentatively concluded, looking at anything theological or metaphysical in the conventional senses of the terms, nor were we looking at anything merely sexual, but rather at something that encompassed sexual, spiritual, and metaphysical, and even biology and physics components into one confusing, if not disconcerting, whole. With respect to the first of these three secrets, the curious and ambiguous wondering is necessary due to the extraordinary nature of the statements made in those ancient texts and cosmologies. One was dealing with systems that defied conventional analysis or pigeonholing into a theistic or atheistic box, but rather, as will be seen in the main text, with systems that could fit into both at the same time, theistic and atheistic. The images and cosmologies in view were, in other words, a kind of acid drip on all conventional techniques of dialectical philosophical analysis. They were components of a deep cosmic and anthropological ritual. They defied convention and tradition precisely because they claimed to be the oldest conventions and traditions. All others were reductions to one particular subset of implications. Interesting ideas and thoughts there, eh? Okay. Now, look, for those of you who just logged in, this is the Walter Bosley channel, and what I'm doing is going through Trans-Humanism by Joseph P. Farrell and Scott DeHart, doctors both, of and this is Trans-Humanism, a grimoire of alchemical agendas. Okay, and what they're trying to do in this book is explain to the reader what are some of the ideas and concepts, and for some people, the truths. What is the knowledge of our truest, earliest nature? What is our true legacy? What do we come from? What's our real origin that has been obfuscated, obscured, kept from us, lied about by the so-called experts, specialists that we are told from childhood that's who you believe, that's who you put. That's who you place your interpretation and understanding of the most precious truth about your very being. You take their word, bro. You trust them, bro, because they wear the collar, because they wear the hat, because the angel came to them in a cave. Trust me, bro. It happened. Anyway, that's what this discussion, relates to. So let's go to Alchemo-Sexuality as a metaphysical first principle. For us, the question then became, why should all three of these things be so persistently, consistently, and alchemically linked? I remember what I was going to say. The reason I'm talking about this is I'm trying to throw food for thought out there to you. Okay. I'm not here to read these things and then tell you what you should think. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what they have expressed in their work here. But it's really food for thought, things for you. I'm throwing, in some cases, grenades in some rooms. Casting light into dark corners that maybe you've been told not to look into. That's the purpose of this evening, because these are the kinds of things that interest me more than goddamn, who's driving the UFOs, or the politics of the day. This is the kind of stuff that, to me, this is much more eternal. This is for me. For me, these are the kinds of things that are more worthy of my time. For me, you may be different. You may think this is all nonsense, and you care about the stupid bowl, the Super Bowl, whatever. It's hey, it's all waves, man. A gentleman once told me, a guy named Jared once, reminded me, the Silver Surfer said, "It's all waves, man." Right? Alchemo-sexuality is metaphysical first principle. For us, the question then became, why should all three of these things be so persistently, consistently, and alchemically linked from the Vedas of India, the I Ching of China, to the netters of Egypt, and even to the Popol Vuh of the Maya in Mesoamerica, and the emanations of the Hermetica of Plato and of the Neoplatonists? The widespread diffusion of the alchemo-sexual symbolism of God or man defied any conventional diffusionist model. It was an argument that one had perforce to be looking at a symbolic legacy coming down from, how long have I been on? Good Lord, an hour. High antiquity, or at the minimum at a kind of Jungian archetype in the human mind. We do seek, however, to understand why they were moved to, jumped ahead. And I don't want to jump ahead on this. As we research further, more questions surface. Why, for example, was there an emergence of this imagery in the poetry and prose of the otherwise reserved and staid English Victorian era? Repeatedly throughout the 19th century English literature, one encounters images so disturbing to normal sensibilities that the authors were condemned for their work. And normal is in quotes here, folks, because that's always a subjective term. That the authors were condemned for their work. Two of the 19th century men of letters we will consider, though the list of such authors could be far larger and require a book in itself, wrote Gothic novels with alchemy, apocalyptic revolutionary visions, and forbidden love as a lurking shadow behind the main characters, namely Percy Bysshe Shelley and Oscar Wilde. Oh boy, the forbidden love thing. Oh, let me digress. I think forbidden love, or a modern offshoot of that, or bastardization of it, or literally forbidden love, I think that may linger at the heart of the frat boy, crusader, anti-trans madness going on right now. I think what you may have, in all honesty, are some males who, maybe there's a latent homosexuality there that they can't handle. Certainly there may be an attraction to the modern transgender females, and they can't handle it. They seem overtly, unduly fascinated with this topic, and it really spins them up and angers them. And that's often a sign of when you're when you're hitting a sensitive point, particularly in males. So, I think maybe this crusading hatred, we must eliminate them from society reaction to all of this could really be explained by what there is a hidden attraction, something that they view as, or what they think society would view as, a forbidden love, so to speak, in a much more base sexual way, of course. Because the reaction is way beyond the stimulus that causes it. Just a thought, just something to think about next time you see the bro douche discussion on that in the public forum. Where was I? Most biographers have accurately noted that both with Shelley and Wilde, their personal lives and the art which was inspired by it was anything but normal by the standards of their day. Even today, some would find Shelley and Wilde's philosophy of love far beyond the acceptable norm. And it is precisely at this point that our research attempts to indicate correlations between alchemy and an ideal for the higher man, a godlike man. Unlike the state and the church, we are neither condemning certain literature as immoral, nor are we passing judgment on the lifestyle of the authors of such controversial literature. We do seek, however, to understand why they were moved to write novels with alchemical agendas and imagery which would unnerve the fragile conscience of their readers. Was the life or even the love that was sought by their protagonists or even antagonists, not to mention the authors themselves, higher, or was it dangerously subversive for the future of mankind? Boy, in that paragraph, I'm making this movie here, and wow, some of my motivations are within the pursuit of this film. In our search for an answer to that question, we discovered that even within the Christian, patristic, and Gnostic traditions, there were clear allusions to the same idea, allusions taken over almost whole cloth from very ancient and very non-Christian sources. Again, we encounter the imagery from the Mayans to the ancient Vedic Indians. The question for us then is, why is this there, and how might one rationalize it? Here, the key, oddly enough, lies in ancient cosmologies, in the physics, and a profound topological metaphor that we have explored in previous books. The presence of this metaphor is in itself perplexing, for it cannot be gainsaid that it is not only both ancient and fairly universal, having every appearance of having come from high antiquity, but also that the metaphor itself stresses the fact that this primordial alchemosexual androgyny is primordial, i.e., and this is emphasized here, it is regarded as a kind of metaphysical first principle by almost all who employed it. Meaning it's across the board from all these sources, a metaphysical first principle, the primordial alchemosexual androgyny. Okay? And again, the question is, why is it there in the first place? In this book, we attempt to argue a speculative answer to those questions, which is why you need to read this book. Yes. Why is some of this this is the kind of stuff that it does make some people nervous when you talk about these things. Okay, I know it does. That's why I like talking about it. That's why I like throwing it out there. Let's go to Alchemo-Sexuality. Okay, already read that part. The final eschatology. Whoops. Oh my. What did I miss here? I jumped. During the course of our mutual conversations and researches over the years on alchemy and related subjects, we came to another equally disconcerting realization. Alchemy was identical in almost all respects with the basic fundamentals of Christian sacramentalism. One, both insisted that matter could be transformed into the vehicle for oneness with the divine. Both aimed, therefore, not only at the transformation of matter, but eventually at the apocalyptic transformation of mankind himself from a so-called base metal into an immortal gold, so to speak. And finally, both insisted that a basic recipe be followed, employing the proper matter for this transformation, performed at certain specific times and according to certain specific formulae of words and proper moral intentions. Okay, so the Christian system, it has within it inherently, it's alchemical. Maybe the means by which you're not in a laboratory with jars of bubbling liquids, okay? But metaphorically, you're in this world is the laboratory. And as you work on your soul and your what they call salvation, that's your alchemical process that you're going through. See, you get it. You guys get this. Where the two differed was that alchemy insisted that there was no need for special revelations, churches, or priesthoods to accomplish all this. Rather, it was a goal pursued through the millennia by so-called technological means. No church other than that of nature and nature's God were necessary. The one was a ritual of revelation, the other a ritual of technique and technology, which can be dangerous, of course, but so can the other. It is when one considers the full implications of these points that the disconcerting realization begins to dawn, for there is implicit in these propositions the idea that there is a hidden agenda concerning knowledge, power, technology, and the final transformation of man according to its own alchemosexual principles. Indeed, so disconcerting are the details of these principles and agendas that we do not, in this book, even come close to encompassing all the minutiae. The knowledge is too powerful and the danger too high. I didn't say it wasn't dangerous. Let me say this again. Let me read this again. Where the two differed was that between alchemy and religion, where the two differed was that alchemy insisted that there was no need for special revelations, churches, or priesthoods. What did I say about the friggin' specialists? The priesthood is nothing but specialists. I'm not saying they're all a bunch of bad guys. The great majority of them out there doing wonderful altruistic things for humanity. But as far as their necessity, that you cannot understand the nature of your own being and your role in this alchemical process of the cosmos, the universe, of everything that is, that you can't understand that, grasp that, or know what to do with yourself without the priesthood, without the specialist telling you how to do it or interpreting it for you, is what we call a damned lie. Okay? And that's the thing. The priesthood, the specialists of any religion, not just Christianity, not just the Yahwistic monotheisms, any religion that adheres to this kind of thing. We often say the Yahwistic monotheisms do that because they, in our times, when you're in the West, you immediately think of one of those three: Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, because Jesus, the rigid rules. And the cases of two of them, well, all three of them actually had their, they all went out on crusades to, slaughter, name of God, that kind of thing. We tend to think of them, but they are protecting their own gig. Okay. They're like the corporation protecting their territory from the competition or from the independent, mom and pop store, so to speak. It's what they are is, 7-Eleven protecting their territory and interests from the mom and pop store. Oh, don't go to that individual iteration of the mini mart, which, by the way, existed before. That's a whole other story. The Southland Corporation ripped off the idea, but it's like 7-Eleven, wanting to put the independent guy out of business. It's like Blockbuster. Once they get established, the idea is to keep the independent person who does it differently, not their way, therefore the money not going in their coffers, out of business. It's like Walmart and so forth, and all doing the same things. It's the trust me bro brand of religion is the corporation. Okay. And you thinking for yourself, you're the independent small business man, and they don't want that. Get to these points. Let's see. Did I get that? Yep. So let's get on to some next points here. Now, let me see how much time I got. My God, it says I've been going on for 1 hour and 7 minutes. I just get rattling and rolling. And I have a whole section here about the Tower of Babel moment in history, which is really interesting on this topic. And basically, if you recall, I said a few minutes back that there is reason to consider that our original nature was a literal, let's say, androgynous being. Okay? Now, some traditions interpret the Tower of Babel moment, when we were all one people, we all spoke the same language, but we had to be torn asunder and not understand each other. Because why? Because, well, they say in here, the primary. There we go. Let's do the. Let me get to when you talk about the Tower of Babel moment, which I just described. You get the idea. We were doing something that the gods felt threatened by. I'm probably going to have to take this up on another live stream because there's a lot of stuff here I want to cover. A lot more stuff. This is a much bigger discussion than time will allow here. Sometimes I just like to pick up a book like I did tonight and just jump into concepts and share them with you. And this is one of them. This is one of my favorites. I recommend you find this book, Trans-Humanism, A Grimoire of Alchemical Agendas by Dr. Joseph P. Farrell and Dr. Scott D. DeHart, two of my favorite authors, two of my favorite friends. And I think I'm going to go to the live chat now. I want to remind you, before I go to the live chat, everybody, this Wednesday night, May 17th at 4 p.m. PST, big episode here, big live. It's live. We're having the next episode on the discussion of trans-temporal cosmic warfare. Trans-temporal, that means across. Why is Walter using this word trans? Because trans is a prefix that, forget your current political context, okay? Curb your forbidden love attraction, okay? Trans-temporal just means across time. The trans-temporal cosmic warfare discussion returns with Joseph P. Farrell live Wednesday night, and I'm working on some panel guests. One of them is alien scientist Jeremy Rice, if he's still going to be available. And I'm working on another one. But this is an exciting discussion. What you, the viewers, have deemed the most exciting discussion in recent times on the Walter Bosley channel. And this Wednesday, be here. Don't miss it. You're going to love it. Let me go to the live chat here. And remember, folks, I want it in all capital letters. If you want me to see your comment or answer your question, it has to be in all caps. Please, please, please listen. Here I am talking about these amazing concepts, and Cardinal Sin is concerned about my hair looking green because of the background. Cardinal Sin, come on. Okay, so any questions, any comments from the live chat? Remember, on Friday nights from 9 p.m. to midnight PST, I have a show called Lost Horizons on the Independent Broadcasting Network at Independent Broadcast Network at independentbroadcasting.com. And you can listen to previous episodes on Spreaker. You can find the books at lulu.com, LULU.com, and now several of them at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But folks, I remind you, even if you order from Amazon and Barnes & Noble, the books, from my label or my books or those I publish, they still process through Lulu. You still have to wait the 2 weeks. So why not just go straight to Lulu? Because I'll tell you what, if you get them straight from Lulu, I and the author, who other than myself, who might have written the given book, get a much bigger part of the royalty than if you buy them at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So it's your choice. Thank you, Old World Micmac. Old World Micmac says, "Hey, Walt, love the show." Thank you. Darcy Edmonds says, "Crickets of awkwardness." Yeah, I see that. Oh, you're absolutely. Okay. So, yeah, amazing. That's what you get out of it, Citizen Quasar. Good. What the? Oh, thank you, Megalith. Thank you. Good to see you. Ari says, "Was building a tower to God what you were referring to?" Here's the thing. They were the so-called tower to God that they were building was the manifestation of what the Elohim feared. Okay. And remember, they had to, and I'm going to discuss that the next time I talk about this book. Basically, that represented what early human beings before the division of the sexes within this particular context and remember the in one tradition it's God, in other traditions it's gods, whatever, what have you. They said, oh no, look what they can do. They're gonna be on our level if we don't stop them. So what did they do? They split us all up and such to keep us from advancing. There's something questionable about that. And April Chrisman refers to The Golden Bough by James Fraser. The Golden Bough by James Fraser, question mark. So The Golden Bough, yes. If you're asking me, yes, The Golden Bough was written by James Fraser. Yes, I have heard about that. What I'm being facetious here. Be a little more specific in what you're asking me or commenting on so I can understand, April. Just reword that. So, because I want to answer your question intelligently, or as intelligently as I can. Karen Degenhart says, beautiful talk. Thank you, Karen. You're welcome, April. I hope yeah, if you want me to acknowledge the similarities and what the Golden Bough was talking about, sure. Yep. Yep, indeed. Yep, indeed. So, any more questions? Remember, folks, all caps, please. If you want me to see it, acknowledge it on the show. Also, again, if you want to donate, and you'll notice I don't monetize the channel. I don't have Snap, or I don't have, oh, Jesus. You know what I mean, the super chats. You can just buy one of the books that I publish, okay? And that's how you can throw money at me, and it's much appreciated. But I also feel like you're getting something in return, and you know that I think that's a really good way to donate money. Let's see here. Shelly P says, "Did you just say broke us up via time displacement?" No, I did not just say that. I said literally split us in two. In some traditions, we were androgynous beings, and we were split into male and female, not feeling 100% whole, and therefore then sent off on this tangent to multiply. And oh my God, the traditionalists are going to say he's being anti-breeder. No, I'm not. I'm speaking much more objectively than you may realize. Isn't it interesting, these amazing concepts we're talking about? Meanwhile, Gil and Citizen Quasar are just seeing my hands be green. I'm just teasing with you guys. And Malia, yes, give me the keys, motherfucker. G-Chin, so has Elon been caught stealing humanity? I don't think so. I think Elon's being, popularly demonized because, that's the trend. Old World Micmac asks, are Native Americans part of the Lost 10 Tribes? Well, they could be. I have no problem with it if they are, but if the whole Lost 10 Tribes thing, as we're told it, is, the whole story, that could be a tradition based on an even older tradition. So in that sense, yes, but not just within the Hebraic concept of the 10 tribes. Could be, I don't know. Yes, Philip Blair, you're right about that. About the sacrificial king. You're referring to like King Kill 33 stuff. That's another discussion for another time. Okay, G-Chin, I'll tell you what, when I have a discussion about what that evil Elon Musk is up to, I'll let you know. Right now we're talking about the things I discussed in the Farrell and DeHart book, Trans-Humanism, a grimoire of alchemical agendas, which talks in a general sense about what people are accusing Elon of, but specifically tonight I was talking about other aspects of it. So when we have that discussion on Elon Musk, you'll be the first to know. Freckle Joy says, I got home early. We can go do Fountain of the World. Well, Malia and I were anxiously waiting till you got back so we could explore those things that you suggested. So we're looking forward to it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here we go. Let's, what are we up? Oh, okay. We still got time, folks. We still got time. And remember, I'm working on the film, The Kaleidoscope Grimoire. I'm still working on it. Folks, let me tell you something. This is a micro-budget independent film. There's a movie that's streaming now. It's from the late 60s titled Equinox. Equinox, tomato, whatever you prefer. And that was a film that took, I believe, 5 or 7 years to finally, get finished. That's the way micro-budget production is. Other things kind of put the filmmaking on hold now and then. But my donor producers are kept apprised of, when I'm working on the film, and they see little snippets of what is being accomplished. But the Kaleidoscope Grimoire, it deals in some of the very same ideas I discussed tonight that are in this book. Okay. Some of them directly. This is the film that I'm making, a film that deals with these ideas. So if you're wondering, why is he interested in that? That's why, because these ideas do interest me, and I'm in the middle of an artistic expression of these ideas, which you will see. Johnny Side, by the way, I ordered the book I owe you, so it should be on the way finally at last. The new book, the new Napoleon book, it's going according to schedule, but I am working on something else that should be out before then, something quick that I actually started a long time ago, and that's all I'll say about that. Darcy Edmonds, if we have time weapons or tech, how much do you think it affects? A little bit on stun. Okay. Darcy, save that question for when I'm talking about the time technology topic. And this Wednesday, why don't you save that question for this Wednesday when Dr. Joseph Farrell will be my guest live discussing transtemporal cosmic warfare once again. This Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live with Dr. Joseph Farrell and possibly others. That's a good question, Darcy. Scott Henry says, before the Androgeny split, some say that was Lemuria before Atlantis. Theosophical concept. No. It's not it's talked about within Theosophy, but its origin is way older than Theosophy, or even, the sources of Theosophy. This is what DeHart and Farrell are saying. This goes way back. Okay. And yeah, Blavatsky was looking at some of the same sources, of course. But I'll tell you what, for me, Theosophy is a mixed bag as a source, because Blavatsky herself, for example, was a mixed bag as far as being a reliable source. I talk about that in The Lost Expedition of Sir Richard Francis Burton, some things that she clearly just lied about, fudged, bullshitted, and so unfortunately it affects, her credibility. I know some people place a high value on Blavatsky as a source. I'm just saying she's a mixed bag, for what that's worth. You're welcome, Johnny Side. Thank you. Cardinal Sin says, I hope you're being well on 7-Eleven, Leah. I really do look forward to your shows. Looking good today, I must say. What is the next books magazine to be published? I'm I'm looking hopefully at Esoteric Napoleon Volume 2 in September, October. Indeed. Yes. Hello, David Paff. Yes. I know you get these concepts. I know, definitely. Let's see how much time we got here. Oh, we still got some time. I watched let's see. Old World Micmac asked, have you ever heard of the Wabanaki Giants? Not that I recall. I might have if I hear more context and details, but off the top of my head, no. Plato spoke of as well, I think, yeah. Yes, of the androgyny of the Atlanteans. I don't think so. I don't recall that, but I am not an expert on Plato. Pef, I did enjoy her Land of the Gods. Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, I have some Blavatsky on my shelves. I mean, she's not a completely useless source. I'm just saying she's a mixed bag for me. I don't hold her on such a high level as a measure of the standard as others do, and that's okay, because there's some people I do hold. I mean, I get crap all the time from friends over, Farrell and DeHart, and it's just the way it is. Philip Blair asks, Walter, can you please elaborate on Teddy Roosevelt's comment here? Ignorance, superstition, bigotry, lust, tyranny, and despotism. I don't see its connection to the context of where our head is right now. A little more context. Oh, Wabanaki, Anunnaki. Oh, duh. Thank you for pointing that out. David Paff, I agree, as Daniel seems to hold her too high. Well, I think let me put it to you this way about Daniel, dark journalist. I think to the extent that he is referencing Blavatsky is probably that extent to which she is a reliable source of certain things. So I'll be, maybe that sounds like the diplomatic answer, but okay, Super books instead of super chats. That's right, Philip Blair. Thank you. Hey now. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday. Malia and I are going to be, posting some photos. Maybe I can never resist posting little snippets of video. We're gonna take a little day trip here this week. You'll know it when it happens. And doing a little research. It's research for multiple projects. And then, of course, Wednesday is the big transtemporal cosmic warfare episode, as I've been repeatedly saying here. And I'm Cardinal. Am I on this Thursday? Is this the Thursday that I'm on? This Thursday night? Let me know. I was thinking it was. If I'm wrong, let me know which the proper date. Megalith, dark journalist, is more of a Steiner fan. Absolutely. And I find Steiner more interesting than Blavatsky. Anyway, I enjoy his Steiner stuff. David Paff, yeah. See, he gets it. Yeah, the Steiner thing is more. Last night, Malia and I watched this movie X about the young people in 1979 who go to the farmhouse to make a porno movie, and it doesn't end well for most of them. So we're going to watch the sequel, Pearl. And then we watched Little Dark Shadows. I have now a digital projector, and we have a big giant screen here. And so, we are watching original Dark Shadows episodes on a big giant wall-sized screen. It's great. And Leah says, if you like this, check out Empire of the Wheel by Walter Bosley and Richard Spence. The first book. Megalith says, Steiner is difficult to read, though. Yeah, he can be a challenge. Yeah, you got to pay attention. Yeah, Ari. Yep, Ari, you're right. Jonathan Frid, the definition. You know, it's kind of like this. Look, no one's ever really going to play James T. Kirk like William Shatner, okay? They're just not. And you know what? No one's ever going to be Barnabas Collins the way Jonathan Frid was. That's just like, I'm sorry, Red Reddington can only ever be played by James Spader. That is another iconic character. And let's take it another one. Rust Cole can only be played by Matthew McConaughey. Yes, folks, this Thursday, I will be with Cardinal Sin on his show. And we're going to be talking about probably some cool shit. I'm sure it'll be cool shit. Darcy Edmonds says the new guy. Yeah, you know, what's his name? Chris Pine wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. I was okay with that. But, you know, Shatner really, he originated the role, and it's just the way it is. Just the way it is. Let's see what time we got here. 1 hour and 30 minutes. All right. So I'm going to open it up. Any questions about anything else now? Any questions about my movie? John Aston and Gomez Adams. Yeah, Megalith. For me, you know, we're of that era, so that's the Gomez Adams I think of. Although Raul Julia, you know, was pretty good. It's just like with Bond. It's Sean Connery first. In my opinion, Daniel Craig immediately in the number 2 slot there for me. A lifelong Bond fan, you know. Darcy Edmonds, yes, I am making a film titled The Kaleidoscope Grimoire. Now, I'm a micro-budget filmmaker, okay? Micro-budget, all right? And I use resources at hand. I did a film which is on here at the Walter Bosley channel titled Hell's Bells. I like to shoot silent movies within the 1920s type of silent vernacular. My films are homage as opposed to pastiche. If I'm not mistaken, pastiche is more of a replica. Homage gives me more leeway and margin for if I, you know, because it can cost resources you don't have to do an exact replica to make it look like it was made in the 1920s. So I homage as opposed to pastiche. You know, Malia has to put up with this many more hours of the week and day than you guys do. Okay. Philip Blair says, I mean, in terms of certain puritanical movements attacking Freemasonry, and why are they attacking? What are they so excited about? Well, because look, the Puritans, you know that's probably the biggest group of assholes in Christian history. Okay. And they are really the inspirational root of, you know, fundamentalist evangelicalism. Okay. And, you know, anything that wasn't them, they had to demonize. Right. So that's just the nature of it's like cults. Okay. When you get people in these churches that, you know, really nothing more than a cult, you get a fanatical asshole leader who has his scam going, or has gone crazy and lures other people into his insanity. this is what happens. You get people with these ridiculous, archaic ideas who are demonizing everybody outside of the cult. We see this, a lot. Now, I just spent some time in Montana, and I saw touches of it there, particular cultisms. Yeah, but it's all over the United States and throughout the world, So it's just the age-old story, Philip, of, my God is right, your God is wrong. Everyone who's not in my club, who doesn't dance my hokey pokey, they're all burning in hell for all eternity, and I'm allowed to make war upon them. I'm allowed to hunt them down. I'm allowed to crusade against them. I'm allowed to hate on them. I'm allowed to, kill them. Because they don't think like I do. They don't do the hokey pokey and turn themselves around the exact same way I do. It's the age old story. Really, a bunch of human beings who are scared to death to be individuals, so they will do anything to be accepted into the crowd, into the group. Okay, so they'll commit any manner of hatreds and atrocities because they're part of a group. There's other people who think that way and tell them that's the right way to think. And for them, there's comfort, okay, and solace and sanctuary in the group to be accepted by the norm. Well, that's the way people do it, So anything that's the outsider gets condemned. And here's the distinction today, why this is important today. There are always radical assholes to the left, to the right, and various stages in between. But there's always radical outlying assholes, okay, in each camp. And they stir shit up and they cause all these things to be fanned up and flamed up. And what the problem is, these collectivists go with the crowd idiots. What they start doing is they don't just go after the radicals causing the problem. They start then just painting, everybody, with a wide brush because it's just easier. It's easier to just pick up your pitchfork and your torches and go after a whole group than to conduct the due diligence and find the guilty perpetrators and maybe point out the guilty perpetrators of the rabble rousing. Okay, this is happening in, for instance, the United States today. You have a very small representative number of a particular group or demographic, right, that has the biggest mouth, that's out there causing the most problems, pissing off people, freaking people out. And what happens is those people in their knee-jerk reaction that are getting freaked out, they say, oh, we got to get rid of all of them. But let me put a finer point on it. You have a group of people who have green hair. Okay, they're naturally born with, or they wear their hair green. Okay, green hair. Now let's say you've got 100 of them. Okay, and let's say that 5 or even 10 of those people with green hair are the problem. They're out there being radicals. They're out there causing trouble. They're out there making themselves look like assholes and causing a bunch of trouble. Well, what happens is all the other people who, say, well, no, this is normal. They're not normal. We're normal. We gotta fight these radicals that are causing this problem. What they'll do is they'll just go out and they'll terrorize all 100 of the green-haired people instead of just the few green-haired people, the 5 or 10 that are causing the problem. So that's what I'm talking about. And this is what I see going on, and that bugs the hell out of me, particularly in what this country is freaking supposed to be. Okay. And so, if one person with green hair is causing a problem, then we must eliminate all people with green hair. And that's ignorant, that's stupid, and that should be resisted. But don't mind me. I'm just a former federal agent who believed in the laws, including the civil rights laws he was sworn to uphold and defend for all the citizens that it applied to, not just the ones that I don't like or the ones that make me feel weird. Okay? Yeah, you guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm just telling people to goddamn straighten up and fly right. Right? Is this an expensive piece of equipment? Is what? As a PayPal donated producer, where are these updates? They're in Facebook Messenger, my friend. Aren't you on the list? Aren't you in the Facebook Messenger group? Oh, if you haven't been getting them, Johnny Side, I got a whole bunch to send you to catch you up on. But if you give me, if you have a Facebook account and you just all the other ones were there, and I assumed everybody was there. Sorry about that. I will send all that stuff to you because for the last I think over a year, I've been sending these updates. You'll like them. Philip Blair, George Lazenby is my favorite Bond. He was a good one. No. George Lazenby was a good Bond, and only because Connery wanted to come back did he not do another one. David Paff says to Megalith, "Oh, do tell I live with Patty Duke, his former wife, and yes, there were not two of her, there were three. Only one." David, that's good. That's good. Yep, Philip the other. And that's a very puritanical thing to do, is get your pitchforks and torches and go after the people who are different. Meanwhile, go burn the witches, which meanwhile, when nobody's looking, you're consulting the witches and maybe even sleeping with them. But publicly, you got to have that face, so you got to go burn the witches, when everyone's looking, while you're patronizing them when everybody's not. I think there's some of that going on these days. What is your Cardinal Sin asks, what is your position on the stuff on Mars and the moon that shouldn't be there, that we're being lied to about it? I'm one of those that I'm convinced that they've been finding relics and artifacts on Mars and the moon. Yeah. And maybe even, the landers that land on Venus burn up pretty quickly. So, or at least we're told, right? What do you mean shouldn't be there? That is good. That is good. Oh, look at me. I've gone over an hour and a half, but that's okay. Let's see. Philip Blair. The radical a-holes are very useful idiot strawmen. Yep, on both sides. Let's be honest here. I'm a guy who's right of center, believe me, okay? And there are friggin' asshole radicals and useful idiots on our side too, okay? The radical a-holes are very useful. Idiot or strawman, it seems. Useful boogeyman reminds me of the satanic panic in the 1980s. And the irony is, Philip, it doesn't mean there weren't Satanists in the mix, even though the panic was, And maybe they orchestrated that panic to look as foolish as it would ultimately look, to get people to believe in them less, to believe that they exist less. Cinema verite, yes. Johnny Side, get yourself. We'll get you on that list. I'll get that stuff too. Yeah, I've been because I did all the live action filming already, and I posted snippets and pictures of that. I filmed a big chunk. I build sets in the house. Yeah, I need to share that with you. Yep. Philip Blair, you're right. Very two-faced about it. And I think when that one particular subject that's, everybody's flipping out over a beer can, not knowing the actual facts and details. And, I think there's a little bit of not wanting to admit something going on there in the reactions of some of the loudest voices on that. But, David, you're not on that list. If you guys let me know. Okay, so we got David and Johnny Side, and I need to get those updates for you guys. Yeah. No, you're if you gave money once, you're on the list, and you're gonna see this stuff. The next phase of the film is the animated stuff. Stop motion animation. I'm telling you. And yeah. I am excited about this. I love making films, folks. I love making films. I want to make as many as I reasonably can with the remainder of my life. Did I get the UFO tarot cards? Nah, that's not my thing. But I've seen them up close and personal because being associated with Greg Bishop, he showed me some insider stuff on it and, explained the process that they went through to make them. And that's always interesting because I do appreciate graphic arts. So,
Can I say something?
yes, my technical advisor producer would like to confer with me.
Can you mention to them
Mm-hmm.
to email you, give them your email address if they want to join the donor list
For the movie?
Kaleidoscope Grimoire.
Oh, you mean the two in question or just in general?
If they want to join or if they're not added to the list, please email you.
Oh, okay. Malia reminds me that if you would like to become a donor to the film, to send me an email and I will send you the link to where you can donate to that. And you too will be added to the list of the updates and be a part of making the film happen. Now, remember, I say donors, not producers, because the caveat with a Walter Bosley film is just that. It is a Walter Bosley film, okay? And donors don't have creative input. They just want to see Walter express himself cinematically and trust and have faith that, that I'll put something out there that will be engaging, entertaining, and interesting. So, send me an email to lostamazon9@gmail.com. And what?
Numeral 9.
It's a numeral 9. LOSTAMAZON and the number 9@gmail.com. And you too can help Kaleidoscope Grimoire happen. Because I am a poor, starving writer artist. Believe me. Good God. My closest friends will attest to that. That's why when I hear some people talk about...
Done?
What?
Are you done?
No, I'm still talking. That's why some people, when I hear them talk about the millions of dollars that the UFO scam artists and stuff are out there making, there ain't millions of dollars being made by the ufology community luminaries, folks. I want to see accounting on that because, folks, I'm telling you, there's not that money. I mean, they make a big chunk of the money there is to be made in that community. But, some critics who I otherwise agree with, need to adjust that because I know few people that are getting rich, sustainably rich off of this stuff. So Cardinal Sin asked, what are your thoughts on the Senate hearings on UAPs and the lack of oversight in the government regarding dissemination of the info? It's a nothing burger because they don't care. They don't care what we know about UFOs. All this is just a charade to make the loudest people happy. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. They're just going through the motions, folks. Until it serves their purposes, they are not going to let us know what the government knows. Okay? That's just the way it is. So this is a bunch of spin up. The best way to get the government to tell you really what you want to know? Stop caring what they say about it. Just stop demanding. And this isn't some evil, trick to get you to quit doing, demanding. Stop caring what Uncle Sam knows. Stop demanding that you need to tell us. Just go out there in the field, everybody, and start looking for you. Start looking elsewhere. And I guarantee you, they'll come running back to you, screaming, wanting your attention like a narcissistic, abusive husband. Okay. Oh, why are you ignoring me? Why are you ignoring me? Okay. So that's the best way to get Uncle Sam to really give you anything, is to no longer care about Uncle Sam where this topic is concerned. That's my position on it. Philip Blair, have you seen any of the videos of Orthodox rabbis talking about the pre-gender, dual gender of the first Adam, different pronunciation? They are very, I'd like to see those. Send me some links. I have seen the videos of the dancing rabbis. Have you guys seen that? Where they do the modern beats and the rabbis, there's like 1,000 of them in a room doing the hopping thing. It's funny. It's cool. Yeah. Or they pull the strings, abracadabra. You know. That's right, David. All these congressmen in this UA poo poo thing. It's they are actors on a political stage.
Who is it?
It's Austin.
No.
Let's see. Philip Blair, interesting, and they cite their sources in both Jewish scripture and their most highly regarded commentaries going back thousands of years. That I find interesting. I would like to see what they say about that, because that's that sounds like that's some pretty honest scholarship. And if they're sharing that, that would be cool. I would like to see that from that perspective. I like that. So, Now, remember, folks, the movie I'm producing, I'm going to tell you right now, it's very R-rated. Okay? When I write a novel, when I write fiction...
What does very R-rated mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Who asked that? Oh, you're asking.
Yeah, what does very...
What I'm saying is when I write fiction or I make films, I make what I want to make, and no F is given as to
Dr. Farrell's in the room.
Dr. Farrell's in the room. Dr. Farrell's in the room. Joseph, if you listened the whole show or a big part of it before I went into the live chat thing, I hope I did the discussion justice. I've got to return to discuss the parts that are in the Popol Vuh, and but of course I discussed the subject within the Walter Bosley context. But in my films, I don't pull punches. I tell the story as it needs to be told. I truly feel that. I insist upon that. If it's an R-rated story, I tell the R-rated story. If it has racy, spicy elements that are going to make you clutch your pearls, I do that. Now, I also get great, deep joy out of making people clutch their pearls. Do not get me wrong. If Walter Bosley is faced with a scene or a moment to make a point that is non-pearl clutching or pearl clutching, I am probably going to lean towards the pearl clutching choice. Because I don't make movies for children. I don't make movies for children of age, children's age, and I don't make movies for childish adults. So, just be aware. If you don't feel like you can contribute or donate, money to a project that might be, against your moral code, that's okay. Cardinal Sin asks, have you had any encounters with Hecate recently? That happens all the time to one degree or another. So the answer is yes. That never stops. Now, remember, there are different manifestations of Hecate, so to speak, and many of them are manifestations of synchronicity. Many of them are manifestations of symbolism, numerologies, things like that, energies. Okay? And not once do I communicate directly with Hecate. That whole Hecate experience, it's just something that's there, folks. It's there in our reality. And it's kind of like once you see her there, you can't unsee her. And so therefore, often the seeing of her is like the experience of her emerging and making herself known.
Did you see that? Dr. Farrell's now?
He said, I think he's talking to Philip.
Yeah, but it still goes right along with your conversation earlier.
Oh, that is a gloss on Genesis 1:26 in the Palestinian Talmud. A similar being occurs in the Septuagint. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Hey now. Hey now. Yes. So. Did the air conditioner go off?
I think it's time to wrap her up.
You think it's time? My producer's telling me that it's time to wrap it up. So I'm waving my green fingers.
Do the creepy finger.
Okay. This Wednesday night, folks, this Wednesday night at 4 p.m. PST, Joseph Farrell will be here in the Trans-Temporal Cosmic Warfare discussion. Again, this is probably, again, going to be the most viewed video of them all. And I am really looking forward to this. Dr. Farrell has stated that there are some weather issues going on in his part of the country. And so the only thing that will keep this from happening Wednesday night would be if he has connectivity problems. So keep your fingers crossed that there's not a weather issue Wednesday night, so that we can have this continue this most fascinating conversation, I think, but one of the top 3 conversations I've ever had in the history of this channel, and certainly currently the most popular one. And Ari, we'll have to have a talk on that, but if you read, I'll point out which books of mine for you to read to answer that question. Yes, DJ's recent interviews with our friend Dr. Farrell, you guys check them out. In fact, check out the most recent one, which I think was posted Friday night. He and Daniel are talking about stuff that's going to have direct bearing on the conversation Wednesday night. Okay, so if you're wondering what Wednesday night's Trans-Temporal Cosmic Warfare discussion is going to be here with Dr. Farrell, watch Dark Journalist's most recent interview with Dr. Farrell. And folks, thank you all for being here. 157 minutes of Walter Bosley is enough for anyone. And Lucky Melina gets many more hours than that.
And then Malia will get John.
Malia.
Got you. Communicate.
Oops. Jesus. We have 2 close names around here that are... Jeez. Okay. All right. Coffee time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, bang, bang. Okay. All right, folks. Have a good night. Thank you. Wednesday night, 4 p.m. PST. Trans-Temporal Cosmic Warfare with Dr. Joseph Farrell here at the Walter Bosley channel. Do not miss it. Don't be watching someone else's show. Watch this show. Watch this one. Nothing anyone else says is going to be as interesting as what goes on here Wednesday night. All right? Trust me. Okay. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you Wednesday night.